Well, hello everyone. Welcome to our pitch. Aijlin, Tyler, and I will be presenting on behalf of our group our solution to enhance the usability and relevancy of proactive disclosure data. Proactive disclosure refers to the practice of publishing information transparently in anticipation of what the public would be interested in knowing. Proactive disclosure is super important because it's one of the fundamental enablers of open government in our democratic society. The government spends taxpayers' dollars. Taxpayers ought to know where their money is going and to make informed judgments of whether it's being on whether it's being used appropriately so they can keep the government accountable to its citizens. As it exists today, the Proactive Disclosure Portal contains nearly 1.7 million records dating as far back as early 2004. However, this portal makes it difficult to browse and understand the data as expressed by comment that we found on from users of this portal, and this defeats the whole purpose of proactive disclosure. It actually conveys the impression that the government has something to hide, and that's not something we want. Well, imagine if there were a single dashboard I could go to where all the proactive disclosure data were in one place, where I could break down said data by a variety of categories according to my needs, and where its visualization is intuitive and easy for me to understand. Introducing the proactive disclosure tool. We propose to merge the many siloed datasets today, for example, on grants and contributions and on contracts above $10,000, into a single data repository through an internal process. This centralized data will be visualized on a public facing dashboard that gives a comprehensive picture of government spending. This is an accessible platform that generates high quality data in an approachable format for all users. Non expert visitors will be able to not just find the data that they're looking for through a streamlined user experience, but understand it too. In the spirit of putting users at the heart of what we do in government, we've identified four primary audiences for this proactive disclosure tool. We're looking at contracting officers, we're looking at policymakers and stewards of public funds, we're looking at vendors competing for government contracts, and we're looking at laypersons in the concerned public. Each of these audiences has different expectations for the tool and will reap slightly different benefits from it as listed on the slide. These will shape the tool's measures of success. There's also some common interests across the board, such as the centralization of data on a platform that follows AAA-CT accessibility guidelines. By accounting for all of these needs in our solutioning, we can put people first in designing a tool that meets users' needs. I'll now hand it over to my co-presenter Tyler to talk more about the features of this tool.
Awesome. Thanks, Alan. So presented on this slide is the current interface for accessing proactive disclosure data. Users are able to view the data as a non-aggregated list or look at individual entries. Tech-savvy users are able to export their view here, where they will then have to clean their data and begin to analyze. Our proposed interface will look like this. The dashboards presented in the next few slides utilize real proactive disclosure data visualized in Power BI with some small data manipulations. The layout, visuals, and functionality shown are not final, but will serve as a point of liftoff for the project. To demonstrate the tool, I'll be answering some of the questions that our proposed stakeholders could ask. From a grants and contribution manager's position, how has a program evolved throughout its lifetime? In this case, the Museum's Assistance Program from Canadian Heritage. The beginning state of the dashboard would look like this. This page presents all of the grants and contributions data available. After filtering the department to Canadian Heritage and the program to the Museum Assistance Program, the dashboard will look like this. From here, we can see that the program was pretty light in 2018-19. Then in 2020/21, there are huge increases in the number of grants awarded under the program. From here, we are also able to look at some of the in-depth details of the individual projects that make up this visual, including how much was given and what organization received it. For stewards of public funds, an analyst that is interested in Indigenous procurement, what are the average sizes of grants provided through the PSIB process in Quebec? The initial state of the dashboard will present all of the contracts over 10,000 data. And after applying filters, we end up with this. It shows us the total number and value of contracts based on PSIB vendors, which comes to an average of $55.8 thousand. From this point, we can see the in-depth details of all the procurement contracts that make up this trim data. For vendors that are competing for government contracts, let's say I'm a small furniture supplier in Toronto who is interested in knowing who my competition is. Using the filter menus on the side, we can select furniture item classifications and postal codes for the Toronto area. Looking at the map, we can see that there is a concentration of contracts in the M3J postal code. Upon further examination of that postal code, we can see that there are 14 distinct vendors splitting $18 million in contracts. Drilling even deeper, we can find that most of this value is given to one individual contractor. The data presented in this slide can also be of interest to members of Parliament, allowing them to better understand what funding has been awarded to their riding. From the perspective of the concerned public, how much total funding has been given to the governments of Manitoba and Nunavut? This dashboard uses the contracts over 10K and the grants and contributions data to determine the total amount of Government of Canada funding given to an individual organization. In this case, we can see that $44.2 million in contributions have been awarded to the Government of Manitoba. After typing in Government of Nunavut on the search bar, we can see that $394.2 million in grants, contributions, and procurement contracts have been awarded to the Government of Nunavut from a number of different departments. During the creation of these dashboards, we've uncovered an incredible amount of depth in these data sets that we would love to bring to Canadians' fingertips. I'll now pass it off to Ajalyn to explain how we're going to accomplish this.
Thank you. Thank you, Tyler. So, solution to the problem presented. What are the benefits? When we make proactive disclosure data easier to access, use, and understand, we spend less time getting stuck in the information stage. As a public servant, my colleagues and I spend countless hours gathering information on questions very similar to what Tyler just showed us. A tool like this would save money for many public servants when we reduce the amount of time to fill in information requests, like spending time trying to find out what the other department is doing. We are saving money. Better yet, we are now able to focus on other important tasks, like discussing policies with other departments on how we can cooperate on a certain common priority. We believe this tool can help improve the open government portal from being a one-way information dump to a platform where the public can do their own research. As the tool empowers everyone with essential knowledge, it allows us to ask better questions, which lead to better discussion. All of these supports building trust with the public. With a one-stop shop access to consistent searchable data on Government of Canada expenditure, there is a step forward towards a commitment to keep our government open, transparent, and accountable to those it serves. So total investment for this idea is estimated to be less than $1 million, with the bulk of the costs related to human resources required to develop and maintain tool. Licensing costs will vary on platform choice. Conversation with other departments suggests there is a potential for cost sharing for this tool. Resource requirement will be further refined as this idea gains momentum. This proposed project is estimated to take about a year, with most dedicated to developing, validating, and testing the product. So why choose us, our idea? The idea builds on existing data from the Open Government portal with Government of Canada resources and talent. Prototype shown here shows feasibility of using current data with room for data improvement. Since this idea was published on the Data Challenge website, our team has been contacted by other departments such as Treasury Board, Canada Revenue, and Indigenous Service Canada. We're very interested in knowing more about this tool and how this tool could help achieve their organizational objective. There's reasonable cost to bring this idea to practice. This makes key government information accessible and easy to understand for the public. This demonstrates our commitment for accountability and transparency. There is also value in better informing policy makers for possibly identifying gaps and challenges with existing data. We believe this tool will serve as a catalyst for public and department to connect, experiment, and transform data into insight. Thank you for listening. And thank you for those whom we consulted with.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we'll get started with questions. Anyone like to start us off?
Hi, I'm Lucy Luanya. I'm the Chief Information Officer of Environment and Climate Change. Thank you very much for your presentation. This is a very interesting project. As you may be aware, we have a number of criteria that we need to mark on each project, and I would like, if it's possible, for one of you maybe to expand on the innovation or the innovative part of your project, developing dashboard on data sets. I think that everybody's doing it with the department. What is unique about this one, aside that it's on proactive disclosure data, which we all agree it's required, like from an innovation or technical perspective, like what is different in your project?
The innovative part of this project, yes, there has been a lot of people using the data. Our tool is to actually, like we said on the project, is to enhance on the user data part to increase people's understanding on the, for example, on the financial aspect of the proactive disclosure. Getting them to use available dashboard, or sorry, that's dashboard that that we propose here to better understand the data that's being pushed out by the government to the public.
Thank you.
Thank you. Derek Dobson at Microsoft. Great presentation. Thank you very much. And a hugely important thing that they're keeping the whole transparency agenda alive and making sure that there's continuing trust in government. I am interested in outcomes, though, in terms of specific outcomes that are measurable and have an impact that you would use to measure success of your project. Do you have any thoughts on that?
For this one, how do we know if this tool will be successful? Well, one, there will be an increased use of or increased traffic to the website. We're thinking for this part of the project. So depending on the platform we use, we can use the telemetric part of whatever platform we're using to actually report on usage metrics. Then we can better understand the traffic or the curiosity of people coming in to access the dashboard, where like how they're using the data and which data is mostly used for their own purposes. And then we also because it's a little bit harder to tell how this will be successful without having a constant survey to the end users, because at the end of the day, these are for the end users and we do value their feedback. So I know the proactive disclosure right now has a comment section, so we will be monitoring the comment section as well to see if there's more positive feedback or room for improvement as well. So now that they understand the data they're looking at, they're probably better to ask the right question or actually figure out if there's anything missing that they can also let us know. So those are how we feel like we're gonna be measuring the success of this dashboard.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Thank you. A good presentation. Interesting. I think it's always data visualization is always interesting because it can lead to so much more. And I think there's two aspects to your presentation that caught my attention. The first one has to do with the ability to free up time for folks that are working in the government to do higher value or higher value work instead of some of the more administrative tasks. So I'm wondering, on the one hand, in the innovative approach, whether automation or some of those tools could be brought to bear here to push this idea a little bit further in that sense. And my other question had to do with metadata, right? How much of that foundational work has been done so that we are comparing orange to oranges? I know that one of the challenges we often have is even in the spelling of the names of the companies. So is that a challenge, or is that something you see as you aggregate data from different sources as being an issue for your project. And I'm Elise Lejeune. I'm with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. I'm the Chief Data Officer there.
Yeah, I can actually take this one. So in working with the data, we have found that there are some issues, such as, the way that a client or an operating or legal name is entered. So we've actually looked at some other products that have been done by Carleton University, who've actually figured out a methodology on how to fix these. They applied it to a very small subset of client names, just in the IT for contracts. But I believe that a similar methodology could be implemented, and that's actually part of what we could automate, is exactly find a way to make it so that when the spreadsheet is submitted, that there is a way for, I guess, the receptory there to understand if a client name already exists and to merge it with an existing one. So that is certainly something that we're interested in looking into.
Good afternoon. My name is Jason Reid. I'm the Chief Information Officer at Natural Resources Canada. And so congratulations on this. Proactive disclosure is an environment ripe with opportunity for improvement. I think it was innovative back when it was put in place initially, but we haven't actually done a whole lot to mature it. And so I'm thinking a little bit of some of the digital standards that the Government of Canada abides by. One of them is client-centric design. And so you've put together a dashboard that makes a lot of sense from a public servant perspective. I'm wondering if we've actually done any FaceTiming with Canadians to see if it's meaningful or impactful to them, or if there's something else that they're looking for. That's question number one. Question number two, and it's been a while since I've played in this space, a few years ago now, how we managed proactive disclosure was every department, we had strict metadata standards and guidelines, so every department had to put their own information or host their own information on what was their own servers, now supported by SSC Canada. In your architecture with this, having a data warehouse in the middle and being able to query that, I think it's the right approach from an architectural perspective, but there's going to be a cost associated to that. And so in the existing, at least to the best of my knowledge, and it may have changed, to the existing model where everybody just hosts their own and it kind of looks like it's integrated to Canadians who don't know any better, when in reality they're actually querying 50, 60 departments or agencies that host this stuff. I'm just wondering if you're thinking about costs and any consideration to engaging Stats Canada to see if their DAS solution would do this, or were you thinking of actually building out something else, something separate and apart? And if you are building something separate and apart, how are you proposing that we pay for it?
I might have to repeat your question on the first one, but with regard to the data warehouse, so we have been in touch with Treasury Board Canada, who is in charge of the Open Government Portal. And so, I mean, we have a discussion with them. We're still trying to partner up with them. But again, the costs, that's kind of the missing piece for this project to move forward. So depending on what happens to this challenge, there might be some extra resources that we can leverage with Treasury Board Canada. So, and it will be dependent on what existing type of warehouse or data warehouse they currently have that's housing their actual data right now for all their proactive disclosures submitted by the department. So that will be a conversation that we are going to nail down once we move forward with this project. But with regards to the first one, can you maybe repeat the first question?
So the first one is about client-centric design. And so when I take a look at your dashboards, as a public servant, someone who deals with this stuff regularly, it makes a lot of sense to me. But I'm partially your target audience, but I think your main target audience are going to be Canadians who want to come in and have that, well, I'm not going to say accountability, but ensure that we have trust with the public service. And so have you done any client-focused design sessions? Have you engaged Canadians just to see, is this impactful for you, the design that we have, or is it something that you wouldn't understand and you're looking for something completely different?
No, we did not did any survey, although we did look at the comments that's already in the proactive disclosure. So we kind of looked at some of their comments on the type of data that it's so hard to figure out for them. So that's one of the main thing where we're trying to create in this dashboard, is how to make it easier for data. And in addition, with like just looking at, because from a grants and contribution point of view, there are the public servants who are, the companies who are applying for grants and contribution. So some of the times we get requests from our own department. What are the requirements for this grants and contribution or programs for them to apply to? So if they have a place such as this tool to actually look at the type of programs and the type of competitor or similar company such as them, and what are they, what type of funding or program they're actually receiving, then it gives them more information to actually use that information to create a project that fits with with the specific program that they can compare with. So those are the only thing I can kind of indirectly relate to being a public. Well, we never did the actual public consultation outside of public servants.
I would also, if I may also, sorry, no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say. I mean, this is. I understand the approach that you took for this, and I'm not. I think that it was a strong approach. Moving forward, you may want to do that public consultation just to make sure we're on the right track. I mean, it's a common IT problem where we design interfaces based off of what we want, and we're pretty positive that's the way to go. And then when we talk to clients, they're saying, well, this doesn't mean anything to me. So just make sure we measure twice, design once.
And I totally agree with that. One thing I would add to our response to that question as well, is from a project, from the skills perspective on the project team, I'm actually a service designer by training, and I work here in the government as a service designer. I actually used to work at Statistics Canada at the Canadian Centre for Energy Information, where specifically my mandate was to take the data sets that we had and all those complicated labor, what is employment, what are greenhouse gas emissions, and to translate that into something that's very user centric and understandable for the public. So it's something that I completely agree with you in the sense that it's important to, moving forward in the project, if we were to expand on it and to build on it, to really start from that user perspective in terms of, well, it's not just spewing out the data. One thing that I've learned from my past experience is we have to sort of help build narratives around the data. It's not just these are the numbers. It's these are the numbers, and this is what it means. Like, this is what the takeaway from it is. So to the extent that we have so far, we've looked at the existing comments from users of the proactive disclosure data portal as it is. Going forward, one thing we would definitely be adding to the project as much as possible would be that actual going out there to consult with users to help finalize and test and do the usability testing even for the solution that we're proposing.
Just make this quick. I don't really have a question, I have a comment, and this kind of follows what you just said, Alan. In my mind, dashboards are really interesting. They give you a snapshot of what has happened. But in my mind, the more important stuff is then so what? And this goes kind of where I was thinking, if this moves, can I say that? If this moves forward? I don't know what I can say. But if this moves forward, or if you ever float this somewhere else, I think something that would really strengthen this is talking about how you might want to link data after. So it's great to know that the government of Nunavut got, I don't remember how much, millions of dollars in contracts. What I want to know then is what came out of those. Okay, what did they do with that money? What made life better for the citizens or the residents of Nunavut? Okay, to link that extra data so you start really doing outcomes. Like, this is interesting. Okay, $400 million, but they could have done that and done nothing with it. So if you can find other data sources that will give analysts that ability to really say, oh, that was money well spent. Okay, and maybe this isn't a good example of Government of Nunavut, but there were some other like G's and C's when you're doing cultural events. Well, what was the outcome? So again, I think that would make this really, really, really much stronger. As I said, dashboards are interesting, but you really get the interesting information when you start digging down, do some more data integration, and so forth. And so it's just a comment and not really a question.
Yeah, I just want to add on that comment. So, like, I think part of this is getting this dashboard up and running and showing policymakers. So when they know, they ask question like you did, what are the outcomes? Well, we all know in the G's and C's program, there are outcomes, but they're not like shared in the proactive disclosure. Why not? They should be. So that's that's the question that's going to be asked when this is finally up and running, because that will give them, like, exactly like you're you know what the dashboard is for. It is a snapshot, but it could be also a moving forward kind of like a picture moving forward. And in addition to that, it can also act as a quality assurance for the type of data that's coming in from the departments.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you for the answers to the questions posed today. So another round of applause.